Welcome to Rising Tide Startups, where we chat with startup founders just like you from all over the globe. Each episode, we bring you practical and actionable tips to help you escape the cubicle and begin your own startup journey. Make sure you take notes. Take it away, Kevin.
Here's a quick word from our sponsor, Podbrand Media.
As a business owner, new sales leads are essential. At Podbrand Media, we create a branded podcast for you to generate those leads by interviewing your best potential clients as subject matter experts. Not only creating great rapport, but also great content to share in your industry. Affordable and effective. Contact us today at podbrandmedia.com to learn more.
This is Kevin Pruitt with a recap episode of Rising Tide Startups. A good friend, Nick Petros, is joining me again, and we were looking at the calendar. It was December 25th, 2019 was the last time Nick was on the Rising Tide podcast. And Nick, thanks, man. Welcome back. One of the best guests we've ever had.
Yeah, right. That's a tall order given your roster. We were joking about it. I was apparently wearing this exact same shirt 4 years ago. So that says something about me. I need a wardrobe change. I should probably wash it too, but we'll get there when it's practical.
He has 12 of those. He's like Steve Jobs. He just has a coral
Yeah.
and jeans.
Oh yeah, all coral.
Every day.
Right.
Exactly right. Well, it's been too long, but remind our audience a little bit, who is Nick Petros and what do you do, my friend?
Yeah. So I'm Nick Petros. I'm calling in from South Florida now. We're way up north in the cold the last time we spoke. I help companies figure out how to establish traction, whether they're launching a new product or launching their business for the first time or venturing into a new market. Specifically, our team sells marketing execution services. So someone knows what they want to do. They just don't have all the bodies to get it done. And we come in and fill in those gaps. That's the Pinchforth side of the business. We have a little baby startup that you and I talked about. I was literally just launching it when we spoke the first time, called My Dash. It's become a toddler and learning how to walk. Dash is an integration service for businesses that consume a lot of data from different systems at the same time. We automate the whole data collection process and package it up into a really nice automated reporting system, so people don't have to pull their data manually or by hand anymore.
Beautiful
so
dashboard.
those two things. Yeah,
and much more than
good.
just a dashboard, but from the layman's eyes like mine to look at it, it's amazing, the presentation of, and it's taking data that you're making it very usable for everyone along the whole chain of command there. And it's there's so much that you've got going on. You just scratch the surface, because I know a little bit behind the curtain of a lot of other things that you've got your hands in right now. But what is just describe a typical day? You get up in the morning. What does a typical day look like, if there is such a thing?
There is. I'm routine oriented. I'm one of those people who, like, you change one little thing and I lose my head. And like the dog who barks at the new plant that's in the hallway for 2 hours before realizing it's just going to stay there. I love routine to make things automatic and easy. Still getting up early. I get up 3:30 to 4 in the morning. I've been trying to escape email inboxes for the last year and a half, 2 years, and I found that period of time is when things are the quietest. So I can just kind of shut everything out and focus on what I need to build and where we're going next, and really get creative. It does a number on my sleep schedule because I got to go to bed pretty early, but start early, get some planning together, get to the gym by 5, and then back here I'm plugged in, working straight through 4, 5, 6 depending on the night. Thanks to you, tied into your other guest, Peter Selby, and we have late evening calls 2 or 3 times a week. We have very late evening calls tonight. And those pretty much happen every week as long as projects are underway. So start early, get all the thinking done, and then just power through when everybody else wakes up.
So, if I was a good friend, I would have connected you to somebody that was in the same time zone, so you could get your schedules a little better. But no, we had to go to the opposite side of the globe for sure. But you're one of the
He's so
most
smart, though.
He is. And you know what? He says
amazing
the same
person
thing about you. So it's a mutual admiration. But One thing that that I've noticed since we met a few years ago and stayed connected is how networked you are across so many different verticals. And not only that, you're plugged into the whatever the zeitgeist is. And the thing we hear all the time is talking about Chat GPT and AI and all these little catchphrases that are going on right now. I am really curious because you have a unique way of distilling down kind of the noise and really focusing on, okay, what's the real gears behind the curtain, so to speak. So I want to touch a little bit about what does it look like? I mean, Elon Musk came out today and said, hey, the sky's falling, we don't do this, don't chase this too far. And so you jump in wherever you think is the most germane entry point. But just talk about that as related to kind of the tech space and what everybody's facing right now.
Yeah. Elon's one of the most gifted people on the planet, so always trying to figure out what's in his head, and this is just a kind of wild guess. But there's two parts. First, we'll talk about what I think the AI of today really is, or at least how I understand it. At least it's not like the technology of it. And then second, what I think they mean by that announcement. So the first part, just the way that I understand AI, and this is from my own limited Python coding experience. I had to learn a little bit for Dash. I think of modern AI, like your Chat GPTs. I use Write Sonic. I should join their affiliate program so we can plug them live and get referral fees. But amazing app if you want. And I use u.com pretty exclusively for search now. Awesome bots, all spin-offs of the same concept. But I think of them as like, you remember like the Dewey Decimal System and librarians, in the 40s through the 90s. I look at the current AI systems as like really, really fast versions of that. So, there's a conversational answer that comes back to you, but it's really just ultra fast referencing model. So when it learns something, it figures out where the information belongs. I know some people are using it to write code. Again, it's referencing libraries and combining different libraries of code quickly, but it's not like approaching the point of like coming up with its own ideas or perspectives on things.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like it could get there, with enough data, and they're moving super fast, which is why I think the notice came out. So with that being my understanding, it's like a next gen Google. It's not this artificial mind. It's just a way more efficient way to find stuff on the internet.
Yeah.
I think the reason why Elon and all those other leaders came out with that notice was because they're concerned that we're moving so fast and releasing this technology to the public without explaining what it really is, that when it starts doing strange things, which inevitably new tech always does, people will get scared. And they'll get scared before they can really understand what it is and how to introduce it into their lives. And I think, given what's happening in crypto, with like the government trying to shut down various pieces of it while simultaneously releasing their own version, I think the public is not in a place where bots can do really creepy things and it can be washed under the rug. And I think until there's more of a shared understanding of what the technology really is and what it really knows and who it really threatens, there's a risk that it could be deemed unsafe, and then adoption of the AI that Musk is building and all these other guys are actually bringing to life will be that much more difficult. Does that kind of make sense?
Oh, no doubt about it. And I think from a the use case that I see over and over again seems to be content generation. That's like the most common use of Chat GPT or whatever is the idea. Okay, it's writing my term papers, it's doing this, it's social media
college
content.
Would be so great.
But the idea that it really is just an ultra fast curation of information that's out there. But finding the information is one thing. Actually putting it into a usable format is a whole different level. That's where I think that this just has such a unique It's just not like Watson supercomputer power. It actually can, has an application feature on the back end of that, to make it usable.
Have you used it yourself to write anything?
No, just kind of scratch the surface, playing with it a little bit. So yeah, I haven't really sat down and used that. But
so I don't know when this is going to go live, but we're actually launching at the end of this week. As we're recording this, we're launching like a portal. So I wrote eight different or nine different ebooks about different marketing challenges folks deal with. For example, one is this winning buy-in from your internal team on your plan. So when you need their help, they're already bought in on what you're doing. And the way I wrote all of those was I kind of like delivered an outline to write Sonic and had it generate its own perspective of content, like on the topics that I was referencing. And then I basically went in and rewrote all that. And it did put in some body content and structure that was really interesting. But when you get into the niches, there are literal patterns that the paragraphs tend to follow. It's different words, but you can see the machine trying to organize it mathematically and spin words the way that they should. So again, it's amazing, and it's a very interesting way to write. You're almost like editing something synthetic that was generated in a couple seconds, but it's not close to what we do, and it doesn't communicate like a clear emotional message like you and I can. And I don't think it's fair to expect it to be able to do that yet. Exactly.
I think that's the concern of copywriters, is the idea that hey, I could wake up tomorrow and 6 months from now it could have figured this out. It could have go all HAL 2001 on us, and the whole idea that somehow it is teaching itself how to write better every time it writes, type thing. So
the language part for sure, but how do you translate intent or desire into binary? And maybe Elon can answer that one. But I think part of the reason why your podcast does well, and people want to listen to you talk, is because your interest focuses their interest. And I think great journalists do the same thing. You can kind of feel what they're interested in, and they can build up certain things. A bot has no reason to care about the content it's producing, and you can tell it what to focus on, but it's still not going to attach any emotion to that because it doesn't know what that is. And I think we're a very long way away from that.
Like, let's say that if you read everything Shakespeare ever produced, like if the ChatGPT is reading everything that Shakespeare produced and somehow developed the style of writing, could that not somehow incorporate the emotion into that as well, just based on his style alone?
It could detect patterns for sure. So like the on paper reproduction to someone who probably hasn't studied Shakespeare would be pretty one-to-one.
Good point.
But it's never going to be written with like tears and burning in the heart, like he wrote. Now, the analogy there is like film versus theater. Like Broadway is still a huge deal, and I think that's because certain things can't be communicated on screen like they can on stage, and I think writing's the same way.
That is, I think of when I look at just the advances. It's is it Moore's law that talks about storage capacity and technology advances, like doubles every 18 months or something like that. I'm thinking this is almost like quantum Moore's law of technology. I mean, it just seems like every week there's something new that's come out, and just trying to keep up with it. Just as a business, as a business that is tech savvy, how in the world do you stay relevant in the tech space today? Or can you?
Yeah. Well, so I mean, Dash, there's definitely competition because the apps write amazing Python code. We use it ourselves, and it can do a lot of the integration work that we can do. But again, we built Dash as a service, not as a software tool, specifically because that translation layer is what gets lost when people are buying from a BI tool. So to give you an example, a VP of marketing will be making a report at the end of the quarter. We're coming up on quarter end in 2 days, to deliver up to their directors or board members, whoever they have to present to. And like they need to pull the data, which software can definitely do, but they need to make sure that it's framed in a way that reflects what they're focused on. their business's KPIs. And like, yes, to an extent, there are like binary objective perspectives on those things, but it's going to be near impossible to explain to a bot how to frame things the way that you need them to. And the companies we sell to buy our service because the BI tools they already own struggle with the same issue.
Yep.
So I think we've got a little bit of a moat there because it's cost effective to use Dash, and we add the perspective that BI tools can't. I don't think that's at risk. I think there's a huge advantage in that we'll be able to integrate a whole lot faster with lesser man hours in the future. So we might even get more economical for our customers in the near future.
Thinking back over the last few years of Dash's, infancy, what has surprised you about the launch of Dash that you thought, you thought this is a no-brainer, and then all of a sudden you thought, well, that doesn't work at all, or versus something that you weren't expecting at all. It's just this major, benefit that just popped up that you thought, we couldn't have even foreseen that one.
So I've been reading about this a lot. This might make you laugh from previous podcasts, but I've been reading about the fact that people would rather not make a decision than make the wrong one. So like even when there's like a need to decide, they'd rather not make a decision at all than decide something that like reflects poorly on them. And what we didn't see coming with Dash, because the way we price the system, we look at the cost, your manager's cost and their staff's cost. That you spend generating a report, whether it's monthly or quarterly, and we try to price our entire solution into 1 month's worth of that. And then it's automated forever. So it should be a no-brainer for any company we're selling into. Like you're going to pay them to do it or pay us to do it and get that value. It's pretty mindless. But even with that price parity, people still don't know what they want to put into the report. And that's what we didn't see coming. Like folks love the concept. There's always a need. Everyone hates pulling manual data and would love to automate it. But when it comes down to deciding, like what information are we automating? There's a lot of uncertainty. Like, am I showing the right data? Is it going to change next week? Am I going to get in trouble for paying a software company to do it for me? So learning how to kind of circumvent those or make it easier for our customers, to get sign off on what they're hiring us to do so they don't get blamed for it down the road. That was a huge curveball.
Can you take learnings from other clients and help future clients in that decision-making process? Are there universal, decision-making processes that you could help? Like if I'm the CMO or the, COO or whatever, I'm trying to onboard Dash, could you help me think through that process based on a previous client you've worked with?
Yeah, so we certainly do that, and we borrow a lot from Pinchforth too, because Pinchforth's made 100 companies reports. But I think the way we've started to attack it is by aligning ourselves with the buyer and helping them present it, north inside of their organization. So whereas before we were just, here's the setup, here's all your data, here's what it could look like. Does that make sense? You make the buying decision. Now we'll put together a mock-up and we'll actually join them in sharing it with their organization to collect feedback and help them get the broader team excited. So we can kind of divert liability on the decision away from them so they can get the productivity they want and kind of skirt the risk of getting blamed for installing something that, wasn't quite what everybody needed.
And from what I remember about the build, it is adaptable. It can pivot. Like if you set something in motion and 3 months later or 6 months later, they're saying, actually, we need to measure this as well. You can build that module into the process or build those additional measurements. So
we can. I think
into that too.
For sure. The difference is that we're the ones who have to do the work. So it's not like a BI tool where you just drag a chart and then you have something new. It's all super custom.
Right.
But it's still pretty easy for folks to ask for.
Yeah. And cost effective, what I remember for sure. But it's interesting. I want to kind of take the plane a little higher, a little higher altitude here. And it's something you mentioned earlier about just, your typical day, but I know that you have your hands in a number of different things and you work on a lot of these virtually every day. It's not like this is my Pinchforth day, this is my Dash day, this is my, whatever day. How do you balance as the CEO of these ventures? How do you kind of balance? I mean, there's a lot of CEOs that can't balance one company, and you're doing, multiple, companies.
Little ones. Yeah, little one.
But they still, I mean, even small companies have issues that you've got to deal with. And so how do you allocate time well? How do you make your employees feel like you're vested enough to be there and be available? And what are some things you've learned by trying to balance multiple companies?
Yeah. I think it's the people that you have around you that make that possible. It's really not something you can do yourself. And that's something I've butted heads with a lot. I think a lot of founders kind of struggle with that too, like reaching their own capacity and grappling with the fact that I really can't do another 10% or 15% here. So when you start to recognize that, you zero in on the things that you really do well, which are generally the things you love to do and you want to do.
Yeah.
Your mind kind of leads you there. And then all the things that you don't, or you can't do very well, you try to find somebody who's a little more talented than you, to bring into the fold and kind of handle those things. With Pinchforth, I've been incredibly lucky. People just kind of fallen into the team that are ridiculously talented in areas I'm not, and like they're able to run a lot of the things that I'll either screw up or I can't do myself. Dash, same thing, like getting it off the ground. We had a product leader for the first couple of years. It was just unbelievable, and put us in a really, really strong position there. And then with the other top secret ventures that we're working on, we have partners, some of which you connect me with, that kind of share in the leadership. So they're driving parts of the business, I'm driving parts of the business.
Yeah.
And, we're all building towards something. So it's other people. That's the key. It's really not just me.
Hire well and trust, delegate where you can, outsource where you can, but that you've got to trust. I mean, good leaders are, what's the old adage says, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. But the whole idea of, these do become our babies, these things that you launch, they become your children. And you're like, I'm the parent, I'm the best person, designed to lead this well. And it's hard to sometimes take your hands off of, the wheel, so to speak, and trust others to drive a little bit. But it's interesting that the whole idea of it's like the E-myth, working on your business versus in it. Because it's easy to get stuck in the day-to-day operations of whatever you're trying to build. But what else have been some lessons that you've learned over the years that you think would be really helpful to somebody that's a little further behind you in the journey, that's just trying to get started and trying to lead well? What's a couple of other things that just come to mind that are just kind of leadership nuggets? Yeah,
nuggets. Well, they're not from me, actually. The biggest life hack ever, and I found it from this guy on Twitter. It wasn't even anything business related, but I listen to Audible books, like business books in particular, while I'm at the gym in the morning. So, hour and 15, hour, 20 minutes a day. So I'm going through like a book and a half to 2 books a week.
Yeah.
Like between the gym and, when I'm here walking the dog or something. And the ideas you pull out of those, you can immediately deploy into your business. It's kind of like cheat codes. So that's been amazing. Just like absorbing more. I learn auditorially, so that helps a lot. One big theme, like within those books that I've been reading a lot about, is how a lot of the biggest challenges you face actually exist within your head, not within the business community or the business, which is really fascinating paradigm shift. But there's about a dozen books that talk about like how you get in your own way and how you engineer situations that create bottlenecks for your business. I just finished one called The Big Leap that's pretty well known, but really, really great way of kind of explaining how those things manifest. And I think particularly early on in a business, when there's a lot of self-doubt and like you're uncertain about how you're going to deal with the surprises that will inevitably show up. Like there are a lot of emotions that actually create the problems that you fear are coming.
Yeah.
So figuring out how to recognize those things and keep yourself out of your own way is just amazing.
And those are really interesting takeaways. And I mean, I've done this for, I think we're in our 7th season, not and 5th year of doing this podcast every week. But I think that those are the last two are pretty unique. You know, most of the time we're talking about, you know, just, hey, hire well, fire fast, you know, do this, you know, here's the 3-step formula of getting, you know, results done. And but yours, I think, is at a more unique, deeper level. Just the whole idea of, I wrote down, your biggest challenge may be you.
Yeah.
The whole idea of, you know, how we can kind of overcome that self-doubt, that questioning mind that we have, for sure. But what's one thing that we haven't chatted about that it's just kind of been on your mind, and as you kind of go through your day, and just something that's happening in the world right now that is something that's kind of caught your attention?
Oh, there's so many. There's so many big
How do you
things.
narrow it down?
Yeah, let's not talk about. I was going to talk about crypto and the banking stuff, but let's not talk about that. Too sensitive now. Energy is in a really fascinating place, I think, right now, because like the reality of the science behind, you know, petroleum and uranium and the key baseload power sources that we have today, and what's promoted on television and by the EU and whatnot, are kind of coming to a head.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, consumers feel that in dramatically rising price points, but they also see that things go up and down pretty dramatically, and you know, might be scratching their heads as to why. And I think what's going to happen in the next couple of years is a pretty rapid energy transition. And I don't think it's going to go to electric the way that the EU hopes it would and the US would like it to. I think, you know, even if it is partially electric, I think hydrogen is about to make a big push. You know, recent developments in fusion have been unbelievable. And I think what, you know, Elon and Brunson and Bezos have been doing and trying to push us into space on a commercial level is going to kind of unleash maybe a 5th industrial revolution of, you know, us producing really, really ultra cheap, super stable energy that I hope resolves a lot of the, you know, geopolitical conflicts that we're dealing with today. So it's one of those like unique periods of time where like technology can actually create a more equal and stable and fair world at the same time as, you know, we launch into a, you know, new territory. It'll be a lot of fun to see. That's on the mind a lot. We're working on that a lot. That's one of our secret projects, but really, really, really interesting space.
I mean, it is interesting that just the I guess advances in hydrogen just recently, you know, that you're reading about, and it's almost like there's like one last hurdle that has to be cracked for this to be just like almost mainstream. And it is really interesting.
We just found out end of year this year, it looks like there's a lab in China that will have a fuel cell that will produce energy on a 1-to-1 efficiency basis as a combustion engine. So you'll have like a hydrogen fuel cell that can basically do what a gas engine can in the same quantity of water. Pretty incredible space.
That is incredible. That is certainly incredible. Well, my friend, it's always good to catch up with you. Thanks for taking time in your obviously your busy schedule. You know, anybody gets up at 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the morning and gets after it, and then works a regular work day, you know, on top of that, and then catches up with people on the other side of the planet in the evenings. That's a busy man. So thank you for taking time, and just once again, just sharing insights and just really giving us just something to chew on, you know, after the fact, and really just playing your part in helping all boats rise in a rising tide. Nick, it's always good to catch up with you. Thanks again.
Thanks, Kevin.
We hope you heard some great takeaways. Make sure you follow up with our guests today and show them the support they deserve. As always, thank you for listening and playing your part in helping all boats rise in a rising tide.